Good evening and welcome to another Teal Tinted Glasses. Tonight we are going to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, and there's actually a fair bit of Sharks news that dropped over the week, so we're going to touch on that too. All that and more on Teal Tinted Glasses. But of course, if you want to be part of the show, make sure to hit us up on all the social media. Hit us up in the YouTube chat. If you really want to help the show, give us a like and a thumbs up and all that wonderful stuff that you're supposed to do on the YouTubes. If you have something on this show that you think we got wrong, leave us a comment. All those things help us in the algorithm. Otherwise, you know where to find us on all the social media. So let's get this party started. It's just me and the jerk man tonight. Kevin Lacey is on assignment, but we do have a love letter from him, which is going to be a new segment, I think, called Love Letters from Kevin. Hockey Jerk, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to go. I've been awake since 5:45 this morning, so this should be an interesting show.
I was going to say, and you're, for those who don't know, which why wouldn't you know, you're in the Eastern time zone, so that's a lot of time to be awake.
It is a lot of time to be awake. So obviously we've had a few things go down. Obviously the RFA situation is now completely sorted out. Noah Gadjovich, 1 year, two-way contract, which will pay him $750K in the NHL or $120K in the AHL with $150K guaranteed money. So what that means is if he spends all his time in the AHL, he will get paid actually $150K rather than $120 bare minimum. So that's I think this is a good deal for Noah Gadjovich in my opinion. But for a guy who's stuck in the NHL most of last season or pretty much all of last season, are you surprised on the two-way contract, or is he gambling on himself here?
I'm actually not surprised by the two-way contract just because I don't think that Jonah Gadjovich actually should have been in the NHL. I think he was just by virtue of circumstances. Obviously the Sharks didn't have a lot of warm bodies to roll out there on a nightly basis, and so I kind of feel like a two-way contract is more appropriate for Gadjovich, especially considering, the guys who have come in. I mean, if there's one thing Mike Greer's done, it's rebuilt the bottom six, and that does kind of make you question where does Gadjovich play on this team. But also, if you're expecting Bordeleau to be a fixture, if you're expecting Eklund to be a fixture, he's already behind the eight ball as it is, and so I think the two-way contract it's more appropriate for him, I think.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with any of that. Especially looking again, I think that the one thing that every time there's a two-way contract for a guy who's been around a little bit, I think the one thing you always have to make clear is just because he has a two-way deal doesn't mean he's suddenly waivers exempt. If they send him down, then he's going to have to clear waivers to go to the AHL if they send him down. So he could get picked up by another team should he not make the team out of camp. The difference between one-way and two-way deal, again, is just the amount of money you make between the leagues.
Right.
But I feel like it's something that always doesn't get... I feel like we always have to kind of throw that out there because I feel like the two-way deal is one of the most misunderstood things in the NHL as far as CBA goes.
Well, and I think that has a lot to do with the phrasing. I mean obviously we know the phrasing, we understand it, but I think for a lot of folks they hear two-way and I think the natural progression is two ways up and down, and that's if that is the rationale that people have, I understand it. You know what I mean? I get why that's where you would go with that, but you're right. It's worth mentioning. The one-way, two-way thing, it has everything to do with how much you're paid and at what level. And the nice thing that we've seen, and we've seen the Sharks do this as long as probably we've been doing the podcast, so it's not really new to us. But I do, for those who don't know, the minimum salary if you're in the AHL, I believe Kevin would know. I believe it's 70,000 or 77,000 in that ballpark. And to the Sharks' credit, and obviously think about cost of living in San Jose, but to the Sharks' credit, they usually do a really good job at taking care of AHL players. You know, I'm on Cap Friendly right now. I just picked 3 random teams in 3 random places. You know, Florida, Dallas, Toronto. They all have, and picked a random minor league player. They're all making $70,000. Where you look at most of the players the Sharks have in their AHL system, you know, you have a couple who are in that 70,000 range, but for the most part, you know, they're closer to the 120, 130, 150 range. And, you know, I like seeing, and we've talked about it before, I like seeing the Sharks kind of take care of their minor league guys and kind of bump them up a little bit. Ian, I think something happened to your microphone. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's my bad. All right, here we go.
There it is.
Yeah, there we are. I was just saying, like, there's a.
It was Nick Cicek.
Nick Cicek had sabotaged the channel once again, even though Lacey's not here. I was just saying that with Noah Gadjovich, like, it's really interesting because I feel like how this team is going to look out of camp when they take the ice for the first time. Because I say this to be witty, but
sure.
But you know, the symmetry of 3/3 lines. But I until I see otherwise, that is what I'm going to it. I love, like, just the chat, right? Like Logan Teal right off the top. Lacey's been kidnapped by Nick Cicek, and then obviously, like, once we get going here with the audio problems, it's always Nick Cicek. I love this. It's fantastic. Adin Hill traded to the Vegas Golden Knights for a 2024 fourth round pick. You aren't a big fan of this.
This trade is kind of like an onion for me. There's a lot of layers to it. If you just put the trade in a bubble, hey, the Sharks cleared out $2.25 million by getting rid of Adin Hill. Awesome. Love it. I think that's smart. But and even, you know, trading him for a fourth round pick after giving up a second round pick to acquire him sucks, but it is what it is. Right?
It is, yeah.
You know, and the thing that I had mentioned, you know, when we did the Twitter Spaces, you know, with AJ and with Landy, the thing that I had mentioned was, you know, as a general manager, you win some, you lose some, and it all balances out. And so I'm not really sweating that all too much. But the thing that I take away is the Sharks, and unfortunately, we saw it with Ryan Donato a couple of years ago as well. The Sharks, in my opinion, I don't really think they gave a fair shake to Adin Hill. I mean, just where to even begin? You know what I mean? And we've talked about it where, you know, the Sharks seem to be going with, or I should say the Sharks seem to be having the hot goalie be the backup for a stretch where Adin Hill was on and it's like, no, we have to get Reimer in. And then Reimer was hot. No, we got to play Hill. And so I don't really feel like Hill started as many games as he probably should have. But then beyond that, to feel confident enough about a guy to give up a second round pick for him and then give up on him after not playing him as much as you should have and going through multiple injuries, I just don't think he got a fair shake. And I said on the Twitter Spaces, I wouldn't be surprised if Adin Hill does end up becoming a player for the Golden Knights and the Sharks look back and think, wow, we kind of fumbled this one. I mean, you know, as I said, from the clearing cap perspective, I'm all for it. But what I said to AJ was the only way the Sharks win this trade is if Adin Hill's contract expires and he doesn't get another NHL deal.
Yeah, like, and here's like, and I agree with a lot of what you said, right? But I think going into the season, like, it was always like, well, when they trade Hill and Reimer, right?
Well, and that was the other thing is you saw the debates, right?
Yeah.
Is it Hill or is it Reimer? And what we had talked about is like, guys,
It's both.
give it time. It's going to be both.
Right.
You know, Capo Kakinen is clearly the guy. Strauss-Mann is right behind him. Like this was only a matter of time.
Yeah, I think with Adin Hill, like, here's the problem with Adin Hill, right? Was that, like, again, a small sample size of games. And, like, you brought up the goal, like, the share and how they just kind of bounced guys back and forth. Even, they just wouldn't ride the hot hand.
Mm-hmm.
Exhibit number, 472, why Bob Bugner is a shit coach.
Right.
But to me, like, I will admit it wasn't a small sample size, but like I didn't see enough from Adin Hill to be upset about this trade. But even like we talked about on an earlier show, right? Like, would it have surprised me also for Adin Hill to have stuck around and like, and got on? No, I mean, goalies are voodoo, anything's possible. I just feel like he was the odd guy out. James Reimer, James Reimer is an interesting one because like everyone, thinks, well, why aren't teams calling about Reimer? Why aren't teams calling about Reimer? And and there's a part of me that agrees with it, but I think like Reimer's a good stopgap guy. I don't know if I'm a cup contending team, if I want to go with James Reimer to be my guy.
Unless he's an insurance policy.
Right. But I don't think, but that's not what like a lot of these teams are looking for.
Right, exactly. And not only that, but teams don't trade for insurance policies in August.
That's also true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I do agree. I think, yeah, between the two in a perfect scenario, Reimer's the one to go and you have Hill and Kakinen battle it out. But as you said, and believe it or not, like, Hill had more value than Reimer at this point in time. And obviously Hill's going to be an unrestricted free agent, as is Reimer, but Hill's 26. That's usually when goalies get right into the swing of their career. And I'm fully expecting at this point. I'm fully expecting Hill to be a player for Vegas. I think we both like Logan Thompson, but we also both know that, hey, maybe he's not quite there yet. He might be able to tread water, but I don't know that he's a full season goalie. And with Larry Brossoit, you have no clue what's happening there. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he was one of the main reasons why Vegas missed the playoffs last year, and so I can't imagine there's a lot of confidence in him, not even considering the injury he's coming off of. I think it's going to be Hill's net, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, the team in front of him is going to be good enough for sure. Obviously a lot better than what he faced, like what he had in front of him in San Jose.
You don't say.
Funny how that works.
Right.
I don't know, man. Like I don't dislike Adin Hill, right? Like I wasn't his biggest supporter, and like I said, there was, like I said on the Twitter space, and I'll repeat it for anyone who missed it. Like, Adin Hill's season for the San Jose Sharks was a very Jekyll and Hyde season. There was some nights where he looked great, and then there was other nights where I'm like, this is worse than Martin Jones. Like, just bad, right? And I'm glad that they brought Reimer in to be that insurance policy, because I think because we talked about it before the season, like if you're bringing in a 1B, because I still think Hill's a 1B guy. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, and maybe he'll become, a 1. But to me, I still think he's a 1B guy. And, Vegas, I really like Logan Thompson, and I think Adin Hill's probably going to do well there. But, man, if I'm a Vegas fan, I'm still sweating this season a little bit.
Sure, that's fair. I mean, it's like they were behind it the minute Leonard was announced to be going on the LTIR, right? And no matter who they picked up, like, there was always going to be that nervousness that came with the Golden Knights season, and ultimately they are choosing to roll the dice on Adin Hill, and I like the Sharks getting that draft pick back. Don't get me wrong, but I just wonder if the Sharks selling low and selling early, I wonder if it's going to come around and bite them. Are
you mad that the Sharks made a deal with Vegas?
I don't give a shit. I think they should make every deal with Vegas.
Yeah, I don't really care either.
like AJ and I talked about this because he was
Mhm.
telling me about some guys on NHL radio, and he said, they won't shut up about this whole division thing. And I said, think about it like this: the Sharks play the Washington Capitals 2 out of 82 games.
Mm-hmm.
They play the Golden Knights 5 out of 82 games. Is that really that much of a difference?
Yeah, like here's my take on that, right? Like it's okay, yeah, you sent him in the division, but like let's not pretend the Vegas Golden Knights and the Sharks are playing in the same league this year.
That's a good point too.
Right? Like this, barring a miraculous run, trading in Adin Hill to the Vegas Golden Knights is not going to be what makes the Sharks miss the playoffs.
No.
Like that's going to be decided in like November for this team.
I'm surprised you think they'll make it that far.
So I don't care. Like if it's a 1 year, he's got 1 year left on his deal. The Sharks aren't going to go and and get knocked out in the last game of the season, out of the playoffs by the Vegas Golden Knights with Adin Hill in net. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, but you know what? Don't get so crazy because it could. We didn't think that the Sharks were going to be the kill shot for Vegas last year, and they were.
That's true. But
so,
I mean, to have one game go your way versus an entire season.
Sure, and I completely agree with that. And it's going to be interesting. So November 15th and February 16th, the Sharks are here in Vegas. Games I will be at.
Yep.
I'm very curious to see if our boy gets the start. I'm going to be very interested.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And look, we're gonna talk about Vegas next week, I believe.
Mm-hmm,
Vegas
correct.
should be up next. So definitely, we'll definitely take a much deeper look at the Golden Knights here. I just thought we'd kind of discuss this. If you like the whole Twitter Spaces thing, leave us a comment. Let us know, and then maybe we'll do them more often if you dig it. So here's an interesting thing of information, because I saw on Twitter that it's going to be that there's a heel turn that has happened here.
Yep.
And this obviously has to do with Jonathan Dahlen. He returns to Timra on a 5-year deal. Before I let you, just take a chair out and hit Jonathan Dahlen from behind, I think the one thing, like, for Jonathan Dahlen, like, I think it's cool. Like, it's obviously this isn't what he wanted, right? But like,
sure.
he was so.
So he says.
I feel like I still think it's nice for him that he kind of gets to go and enjoy kind of the fruits of his labor a little bit, though. Like, obviously Timra, before he left for the NHL, he got them into the SHL from the Allsvenskan.
Correct.
And then he left, and he never really got to, lose a lot of games because you're the new team in the SHL. But
the thing that Kevin always says is that he got to miss out on almost going back to the Allsvenskan, but lucky for him, Djurgården was somehow even worse.
Yes. So I kind of dig for him that after going through that journey, he kind of gets to go and enjoy like the fruits of his labor, right? Because he was a big part of that. Sure. The reason why Timra moved from the Allsvenskan to the SHL. Like, let's not make any bones about it. He was a big part of the reason they got promoted.
Absolutely agree.
So I from that aspect, I think I like that for him. But I mean, obviously, like, not being in the NHL is not being in the NHL. All right, you can hit the man with the chair.
So, and this is, I mean, this goes back a long time to like early, like TTG version 2.0 days.
Yeah.
Like, all of us, me, you, Kevin, we were all like, what is Jonathan Dahlen's deal? He said, the whole thing, the whole narrative for the longest time is I want to be in the NHL. And if I'm not, I'm going to go back to Sweden. And I understand people got their glitches, and that's fine. But, so he plays 59 AHL games, does pretty well, for the Utica Comets and the Barracuda. He's like, all right, cool. Yeah. But then goes back to Timra because of the whole play me in the NHL thing. And, it just seemed like there was excuse after excuse where it was, I want to be in the NHL. Oh, hey, we got an NHL job for you. Yeah, but I want to get Timra to the SHL. And when he got Timra promoted, I was half expecting him to do what you're talking about and saying, well, I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor, And so he came over and we were juiced. We were like, here we go. Finally, this is it. Definitely some cautious optimism, but some excitement at the same time. I mean, I know we were all excited. You see what he did in the Allsvenskan, and obviously the Allsvenskan is very different than the Swedish Hockey League, but it's still encouraging when a player puts up good points wherever they are.
Yeah.
And so he comes over, and that's, for me anyway, that's kind of when things turned a little bit. He played really well, and so that made him likable. He kind of got the jam job a little bit, which made him even more likable and Bob Bugner more hateable. And, I kind of felt like things had turned the corner, and then Sharks don't qualify him, and that was a whole thing. But it's like, okay, you showed that you can be successful in the NHL. Maybe you take a 1-year deal somewhere else, you take a tryout, you figure it out, and you build off of this. And the whole narrative all the way through is, oh, well, we want to play, Jonathan wants to be in the NHL. He wants to be in the NHL. Priority 1. We've talked to 5 teams, had preliminary conversations with 5 teams. Okay, cool. Then he goes back to Sweden. And again, I'm with you. I think him getting to enjoy the fruits of his labor, 100% well-deserved, well-earned, well within his right. But it just seems a little fishy to me to talk again, as was the case 4 years ago, how the NHL is your priority, but then you turn around and you sign for 5 years in Sweden.
Yeah.
And we don't know. There's not a Swedish cap friendly, so we don't know if his contract has an out clause. I mean, maybe it does, but we don't know that. And it's very peculiar to me, because with how allegedly important the NHL was for him, like, why are you not looking at teams like Tampa Bay or Colorado or Vegas? I said it last week. Good teams who need good players at cheap numbers. Why are you not saying, hey, I'll take a 1-year deal, league minimum. I'll show you need to keep me around. No, there was none of that. I think he wanted the one-way contract with the top 6 minutes and the money, and didn't get it. And so, again, as he did in 2019, took his ball and went home. And it's just, and I don't care. Whatever's best for him, good for him. All good. But don't say one thing and then do the opposite. It just feels disingenuous to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I have a hard time arguing with any of that, right? I think, look at, again, like you said, obviously got a little bit of the jam job, for sure. But at the end of the day, like, I like to think I'm pretty smart, right? But
sure.
But it's hard to it's hard to keep sticking up for a guy when like 32 teams take a pass.
Right.
Like, I don't, am I the smart guy and they're all dumb? Probably not. I mean, yes, of course
right.
it is. Of course it is. Of course I am the smart guy. But yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's unfortunate for him. But like, I hope he, again, I don't have any ill will against Jonathan Dahlen. I want him.
No, me neither.
I would just, I hope he does well in Sweden. I hope he's happy in Sweden. But it'll be interesting to see if like there's an NHL clause, or if he's just like, no, I don't, I'm just going to play in Sweden for 5 years, and I'll be one of these guys that comes over when I'm 30 and signs a big, that 1 year big deal.
It's just the other thing that's curious to me, and I didn't think about it until you just brought it up, but so the talent is obviously there. I mean, if you look at his career, and again, the Allsvenskan is the Allsvenskan, but he's, his career with Timra in the Allsvenskan, he's well over point per game.
Yep.
For his entire career, well over.
Yep.
Showed, with the Utica Comets, showed really good play there in the AHL. Had a good season, whatever people want to say. He had a good season with the Sharks. The talent is obviously there. The skill is obviously there. Why are 32 teams passing on him?
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I don't want to speculate, this is just my assumption, my opinion. I think it has a lot to do with this idea of, well, I should be in the NHL. I should have a one-way contract. Yeah. The talent's there, but I do wonder, I wonder, why are 32 teams passing on him if the talent is there?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The Sharks and Timo Meier have not started contract negotiations. Are we concerned?
No, he's a restricted free agent.
I'm a little concerned that they're not
I'm
talking a
not.
little bit yet. Like, I would, if I'm the Sharks, man, I want to get this. If the plan is to keep Timo Meier, I want pen to paper as quickly as humanly possible.
Oh, I mean, I agree too. I'm definitely team sign him before the season starts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he is for one, he's a restricted free agent. For two, I mean, we still have so much time. Right?
Oh yeah, no, it's not the end of the world.
I think it could easily be a product of, Timo Meier, he makes his offseason home in Europe. Maybe they want to talk in person. Maybe they can't line the time zones up. You know what I mean? It could be as simple as that. Not saying that it is, but it could
No, it sucks because like I just feel like this is going to be hurdle all over again.
I agree. I could see that
it's going to be
a concern.
Awful. It's going to be awful. Because here's the problem, right? Like if Timo Meier isn't in the plan, let's say he's not in the plan, like isn't that more of an admission that this is more of a rebuild than they have publicly let on? Like, look, we know that this team is in a transitional period.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't want Mike Grier to come bang down my door and say, we don't say rebuilding this team. But so let's say they're in a transitional period, but like how long is this transition going to be? Like if you trade Timo Meier this summer, then that says to me, like, buckle in, guys. It's gonna get rough it's gonna get a lot rougher before it gets better.
And that's the thing, Timo Meier turns 26 the day the regular season opens. Like he is still young enough where if you do a 2-year turnaround, let's say, he's young enough to still be part of the solution. But as you said, if he's getting traded, this is not a 2-year turnaround. This is a 5-year turnaround.
It's 5 or more. Because I agree. Like Timo Meier, obviously you want to see him have another season like he had this season, but you don't want it to be too good because then of course that drives his price up a little bit. It's gonna be fascinating. I think like there's not a whole lot of things that I really am interested in for the San Jose Sharks this season, and maybe that's a terrible thing to say as someone who covers this team and does a lot of podcasts, like many hours of YouTube speaking about this team. But I mean, this is probably going to be more interesting than what happens to Timo Meier is going to be way more interesting than I think anything that happens on the ice.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be, if they don't sort it out, whether that's trading him or whether that's re-signing him, if it's not sorted out, it's going to be a cloud that looms.
Yeah.
And I do think that at worst Timo Meier will do what he did last year. I think there is even more room to grow for Timo Meier, and I don't know that he can be a 100-point player, but I think he can definitely be a point per game, an 82 guy, and that's why I think it's important to get him signed as soon as you can, preferably before the season starts, because if he comes around and he plays 82 games and rips off 90 points, raises the price. And I know people are going to say, well, what if he has 49 points this year? I don't really see that being likely. I think
it's a disaster that would be.
I agree, but I think it's way more likely that he has a season like last year or even better.
The Sharks have an ECHL affiliate for like the first time since 2018, and the only thing I can think of.
They need somewhere for Zach Iman to play.
That's what I was gonna say. You took it from me. Oh, that was my only thing. It's like at least now we know where Zach Iman's gonna play, which would be at the Wichita Thunder. So if you want to see Zach Iman play some ECHL goalie, Wichita Thunder. That's where you'll see.
I think the reason why the Sharks have an ECHL affiliate, and Kevin will speak to this, is there is a million players in the organization this year that will not be in the NHL. You gotta have spots to put these guys.
Yeah. AO in the chat coming in hot. How come no one is talking about Couture at all? Will he still have the C?
I'm not talking about it because I don't think it's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I'm not, again, I am not as down on Couture as a lot of people in this fan base are.
Agreed.
I don't, does he, I don't think Mike Greer's, I think if Mike Greer was going to do something with the captaincy or David Quinn, like this would be done already. This would have been, I think that's one of the things that you immediately do, right? Like if you're going to move the C off of Couture, you did it a month ago.
Right.
That's my opinion. Like I think he's still the captain. He's the captain as long as he's here. I don't know. Maybe I feel like, again, like I know we've seen people stripped of the captaincy and stay in San Jose, but that was a different management group. I don't know if we're going to have that again.
I just don't understand. I just don't understand what why people are down on him. I mean, we've talked about it before. He, right from the beginning, I mean, he got the C from Joe Pavelski. Like that's a extremely high bar to try and reach. And so already he's behind it. Then you have to come in, the Sharks fire their shitty coach and hire a new shitty coach. Mm-hmm. They lose their good players and bring in shitty players and they play shitty.
Yeah.
And you see
a coach
you
that
see
he
where
did
I'm going
advocate for, though.
That is true. He did advocate for that coach. But he, and had a good season. And then you fast forward to the next year, had a good season, leading goal scorer in the Honda West division, and was going to go to the All-Star break, but got injured and spent the second half of that season injured, still put up decent numbers. And then this year put up good numbers despite having an anchor and a mannequin as line mates. Like, I don't I understand the last 3 years Couture has not played at a Couture level.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, and I'm hoping you agree with this, I don't think it has anything to do with Couture. I think it has to do with everything around him. And
yeah,
I don't know how that makes him not worthy of being the captain when the team is significantly worse, the coaching staff is significantly worse, and like just everything else that's happened. And AJ helping me out here, shout out to AJ, completely revisionist history because everybody wanted Couture to get the C when Pavelski left.
Yeah, I mean, except for me. Like, I never advocated for Couture to be captain because I think he's a whiny bitch. But
sure.
That being said, I agree. It's just the unfortunate thing for Couture was he got handed the C and then everything fell apart. And for that reason, my God, I'm going to piss a lot of people off. And I don't care because I'm an asshole. I wish fucking Joe Pavelski was still here and this team sucks as much as it does now. So everyone, because just to watch how everyone would have fucking turned on Pavelski, right?
Yep, I agree.
They turn on Pavelski. Anyone who has. I love Joe Pavelski. Don't get me wrong, but it drives me crazy because I think obviously Logan Couture got dealt a really shit hand when it came to being captain. Like Logan Couture's captaincy isn't the reason the Sharks are a shit team.
No, I agree, and the point that I always will go back to is specifically going to, we're now coming into COVID season 4, but you go back to COVID season 2, the hub season, the Honda West season.
Yeah.
Like people are saying, oh my God, Couture shouldn't be captain, blah, blah, all this stuff. And it's like, the only knock against Couture is that he's injured. Like, I don't know what that has to do with him as the captain.
Yeah.
Is he does Couture wearing the C, is he supposed to make Yoel Shellman better? Is he supposed to make Leon Bergman and Daniil Yurtaikin and Joachim Blichfeld better? I don't know.
I don't know, man. Yeah, again, I'm not a huge Couture guy, but I don't lay this at his feet either.
No, although I don't either.
Wanting the Sharks to bring back Bugner, maybe I do hold that against him.
In his defense, he wanted Bugner back as an assistant coach.
That's fair.
But even then, right? I mean, the years he's been the captain, 39 and 52, obviously, the COVID happened. He was also hurt, 31 and 53 the following year. Yeah, again, good numbers despite playing half the season injured. And then this year, 56 and 77. That's a bit on the low end for expectations of Couture. But again, you're almost a 60-point player and you have dog shit line mates all year. Like, that's damn impressive if you ask me.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Imagine, and I know we've talked far too much about Jonathan Dahlen, but like, what does Couture stats look like if he's with Meyer and Dahlen all year? I mean, especially with Meyer, like, good players do well with other good players at last check.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think you still keep that first line together. I think you put Eklund on Couture's line. I hope to God that can get something going.
I mean, Couture he needs more crafty players. Like, think about, Meyer was his guy for the longest time. Now, like you said, Hurdle and Meyer is the duo now. But like, think about like Couture. He had Marleau for a long time. Marleau is a really good goal scorer. He had, even just going back through the years, he had Kane, which obviously, we're glad Kane's not here anymore. But the skill was there. He had Donskoy. He had Nyquist. He had Pavelski at times. Like, these are skill players.
Yep.
And then what does he end the season with? Nick Bonino and Matt Nieto?
Yeah, no doubt.
Not the same. Not the same.
All right. Last thing, a little bit of news here. Doug Wilson Jr. is now an amateur scout for the Seattle Kraken. A lot of people were like really upset by this news because they thought that he would just get hired and be like the head of everything. And I don't think this is a bad move for Doug Wilson Jr. I think the Kraken are a good organization. I think they're doing a lot of the right things, but I just think like sometimes you have to. I know this is like this sounds like a Sharks press conference. Sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward.
Well, and you know what? Here's the other thing, and I don't want to speculate at all, but Seattle is really close to San Jose. It's about a 2-ish hour flight, maybe 2.25. It's close to San Jose. And I don't want to get into why being close to San Jose is important. I don't want to get into that. It's not my place to say anything.
Yes.
But that's definitely a factor.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I like it. So, I mean...
That said, we are also... This podcast, I think, Ian, you can speak to this. This podcast is very happy for Doug Wilson Jr.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, my friends. So, with all that Shark stuff out of the way, now we have to talk about the Vancouver Canucks.
Now that we're done with the guys who pay our bills.
Yes. Yeah, the guys that pay the bills. All right, the Vancouver Canucks. They are, in my opinion, an incredibly fascinating team in the Pacific. I think they're the most interesting team in the Pacific. Because I think this is a team that could be... This season could go one of two ways, and both of which could be incredibly entertaining. It's going to go either really, really bad, or it's going to go really, really good. I don't think there's any in between with this team. They are currently, again, cap friendly. You look at the way they have the roster set up. Currently, cap friendly has them over the cap. Obviously, roster shenanigans will get them under the cap. They are currently at $85,251,667 for current cap hit, which puts them at $2,751,667 over the cap. But again, they will sort that out.
They have, that's the thing. They have 8 defensemen and 14 forwards, one of which is long-term injury eligible. So, we'll get sorted out.
Yeah. A lot of subtractions from this team, though. Alex Chiasson, Brad Richardson, Matthew Highmore, Juho Lemiko, Brandon Sutter, Brad Hunt, and Yaroslav Halak are the subtractions. Coming in is Ilya Mikheyev, Andrei Kuzmenko, and Curtis Lazar. What do you think about these subtractions and additions?
I look at this, and this to me looks like a team that wants to take the next step and make the playoffs. Obviously, the players to get rid of, I mean, Halak is still a decent goalie. I know he had a bad year. Alex Chiasson is still a good, decent player, but they got rid of a lot of guys who just weren't cutting it for him, and they bringing in Ilya Mikheyev. I like Mikheyev, but it's very interesting to me to see what's going to happen there. I mean, I like the player. I don't know that I would have given him $4.75 million, but whatever. Yeah. And, Andrei Kuzmenko, him coming in, to me anyway, he's a very intriguing KHL free agent. Put up really good numbers with Ska the last 4 years,
Right.
actually. So, and even going back that, he was on Siska before that, put up good numbers there. So really intriguing player to keep a horse eye on if you like tracking undrafted free agent signings. But this to me looks like a team that wants to take that next step forward. I mean, if you ask me, and maybe I'll change my answer if I can look at all the teams at once, but I kind of feel like Vancouver sneakily has one of the best top nines in the division.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of uncertainty with Bo Horvat and with JT Miller, but still, like, those guys, Pettersson, Besser, Connor Garland, Mikheyev, Tanner Pearson, not even factoring in what Kuzmenko can possibly do, Vasily Podkolzin, Niels Höglander. There's a lot of talent in that forward group. I mean, we'll get more into it, but to me, it's the same exact thing as last year. The forwards are good, the goalie's good, the defense, I'm not betting on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same exact thing as last year.
Yeah. I think, it's up. I feel bad for Jaro Halak because you said had a down year, because I thought I really like that for them. Like when they brought in Jaro Halak last year, I thought that was such a good pickup because it was a guy who I thought could really take some of the pressure off of Thatcher Demko, who I'm a big fan of. Obviously, we're all big Thatcher Demko guys on this podcast. And I thought for sure, I thought Halak could take a lot of, some of the pressure off of Demko, and that didn't really work out. This blue line, though, doesn't do anything for me. Obviously, look at Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes. But then it drops off really, really quickly. OEL, I don't know what to
he's a shell of himself.
Point. Yeah, I don't know what happened all for Ekman Larsson. I thought maybe he, in Vancouver, it would be a new lease on life for him after being on the Coyotes for so long. And maybe that still happens. Look, this team did really, really well after Bruce Boudreau was brought in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think OEL, I think if this team is supposed to be successful, OEL has to be a big part of that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, as you pointed out, the defense is suspect. Quinn Hughes, we know what we're going to get out of Quinn Hughes at this point. He's gonna quarterback the first power play unit. He's going to get a bushel of assists, and it's going to be awesome for them. But beyond that, total mystery. And you need, if you're a Canucks fan, if you're a Canucks employee, you need OEL to bounce back. You need him to be the second power play, second pairing stud that he was in Arizona, and I can't believe that's a sentence that came out of my mouth. And I'm with you. I thought, going from Arizona to Vancouver, the top nine, infinitely better. New lease on life with, new city, new team, new ownership group that you answer to, all that kind of stuff. I thought it would be a second coming for OEL, and I'm surprised that it wasn't. But I still think there's time for him. But
yeah,
I think everything is going to kind of hinge with OEL, because you don't question Quinn Hughes. You know what you're going to get.
For sure.
But OEL is the big one. You know, I mean, Tyler Myers, I think, is a pigeon, and I'm surprised he still is in the NHL. And then, Travis Dermott, Luke Shen, Kyle Burrows, these are bottom pairing defensemen. Correct. And same with Tucker Poolman as well. And it's just, who, by the way, is on a brutal contract, but that's another conversation. This blue line reminds me a lot of the Sharks, I'll be completely honest with you, where I feel like Hughes is going to play 28 minutes and Ekman Larsson's going to play 23, 24 minutes, and then everybody else is just going to fight for scraps. And that's, that's going to be
because I'm like, the Sharks don't have a Quinn Hughes.
No, but that's what, but it just in terms
but I understand what you mean.
The minutes played.
In
terms of the minutes played, right? Where it's you're relying on two guys to do the job of six, and I think the blue line is going to be Vancouver's downfall. I feel bullish about their playoff chances, but I'm not totally convinced of it. The thing that I do know is that if they are in a playoff spot and they completely squander it, it's going to be because of their blue line.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything that you said, because outside of Quinn Hughes, I don't really like their blue line at all. I think, look at guys that were on the IR at the finish of last season. You mentioned Tucker Poolman. There's still concerns with migraines there. He is skating, but they're not sure that this migraine thing is passed, so he could very well be not on the team when it starts. You brought up Höglander. He should be good to go. Looks like everyone other than Michael Furland is probably going to be back. Michael Furland, I couldn't find much information on, but it didn't look fantastic.
Michael Furland hasn't played since the bubble 2 years ago. I wonder if his career is over.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just going to ride out, because I always try to look up, because especially guys like, you're like, where did everyone go? And you'll see a name like when you go to do the research, like, oh yeah, Michael Furland's on that team. Whatever happened to that guy? And then, yeah, it looks like he's going to be. I mean, he only got 1 year left on his deal anyway. So, but yeah, like I think in net, Thatcher Demko. Again, it's the blue line in front of him.
Right, and as you mentioned, we are Thatcher Demko fans on this podcast. We like Thatcher Demko, but with Spencer Martin as your backup, right? I would say, I mean, granted, Spencer Martin, he had good stats last year, but he only had 6 starts. To me, he's an AHL starter, and so when that guy is your backup, you're relying on Thatcher Demko to play a lot of games. I mean, he had 64 starts last year, and as much as I like Demko, we've seen with many teams, I mean, especially the teams that have won the Stanley Cup the last few years, like, you need your backup goalie to carry some water. Yeah. And I hate to say it for Vancouver fans' sake, but Spencer Martin, I don't think is that guy for them.
Yeah, because a lot of teams...
if the Canucks find themselves in a playoff spot, maybe they're an option for Reimer. That's a little bit of Teal Tinted conspiracy, but, you know... I do think specifically with the Kraken, we talked a lot about hypotheticals, and at least I'm kind of doing it again here. Mm-hmm. But to me, if the Canucks do stumble their way into a playoff spot, I mean, I got to think backup goaltender and blue line is the most pressing issue. No?
Yes. Lacey in the chat just bring up that Furland is retired. Now, remember, obviously not officially retired, because then, then you can't use that LTIR space, but retired. I use quotation marks for those listening on the audio.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that. What do you think of Curtis Lazar coming in to be a bottom?
And I actually like Curtis Lazar. I think he's a decent bottom 6 player, but no matter what happens, guy just finds NHL contract after NHL contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's never out of it. He's never out of it. Ottawa doesn't work out, goes to Calgary, finds his way in Buffalo, finds his way in Boston, and just keeps getting NHL deals. And good for him. I mean, I think he's a decent player, and you're gonna have people say, well, he's a 4th line winger. Well, you need 2 of them, so why not, right?
Yeah.
And I think getting him in at $1 million, I think, is a good deal for the type of player he is. I'm a little curious about the 3-year term, but as far as the dollars go, I think it's perfect for him. And I think, he's just a player that's going to complement that forward group even more. And, the more I'm really digging into it, like, I actually quite like Vancouver's forwards. I'm very interested to see how they mesh.
Yeah, no, I agree. This forward, there's a lot to like in this forward group. Obviously, I think Elias Pettersson is a hell of a player, but I like a lot of, I love Brock Besser. I like Bo Horvat.
I think a lot of people sleep on Bo Horvat too.
Yeah. I mean, and look at Bo Horvat, contract year. JT Miller, contract year.
Well, yeah, going to be interesting, especially, I mean, JT Miller was far and away their best player last year. Bo Horvat's their captain. It's going to be very interesting to see what transpires there.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, going down the list here, obviously, again, a team that's has a pretty decent prospect pool. Some of the prospects that obviously people would know about would be obviously Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who they brought in, who they got in the most recent draft, Linus Karlsson, who they got for Jonathan Dahlen,
look like geniuses.
Turned out to be, who is turning into hell of a player, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does over, if he can get up from the AHL up to the NHL, because I think his numbers are really, really good. And Danila Klimovich. So, again, like it's a team that has, they have some prospects in the system. Obviously, I think they're a team that wants to go, though. Like, I don't think this is a team that wants to get into like another rebuild situation. I think this team thinks that they can compete and this team can go. 2023 draft picks. They have a first, a third, a fourth, New York Rangers fourth, a fifth, a sixth, I believe is the.
They have their second as well.
Oh, they do have their second. Yes, I don't know why I screwed that. They have everything but a seventh.
Correct, but they have an extra fourth. So,
but they have an extra fourth. So I mean, I'd rather have an extra fourth than a seventh. So exactly. They have a little bit of capital. I think if they find themselves in a good position, I think they have some stuff that they can do at the trade deadline if they're in it. It's weird because I think a lot of people, are they sleeping on the Canucks? I think they are a little bit.
I agree, 100%. I mean, Thatcher Demko is a really good goalie, as we all said. Their forward group, one of the best in the division. I still stand by that. Mm-hmm. As we said, the defense is questionable, but still, I do think a lot of people are sleeping on them. I think Vancouver, it's an easy team to write off just because of the history. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people who are sleeping on the Canucks are going to be sorely disappointed to see what ends up happening. And truthfully, there's been a lot of chatter about JT Miller. I kind of feel like even if JT Miller goes, they're not really going to be hurting all that much. I mean, they're still going to have a really good forward group. And who knows, maybe if they are forced to trade JT Miller, maybe that's how they address their blue line. To me, it seems on our notes here, we have, are they on the right path? I think they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Bruce Boudreau's a hell of a coach. I mean, look at the tear they went on when he got in. Like, obviously they ultimately fell short, but that run they went on to finish the season,
crazy.
When they were in the cellar pretty badly. I agree they're on the right path. I'm so confused on where, like, I don't know where they finished though. Like, I'm trying to think of, we've given some pretty solid rankings for every other team as far as where they finish. This one I'm struggling with, because I think they could finish as high as 3, but if they finished 5th, would I be also shocked?
That's where we get into kind of the joke I was making, where everybody is going to be ranked 6th, right?
Yeah,
because it's like it's hard to say, and we said, like, Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, mm-hmm. those are the first 3 teams that we've talked about, and those are the bottom 3 teams, and so. It almost seems like it would be an easy answer to just say, yeah, Vancouver will be 5th and call it a day. But I think Calgary, despite the losses that Calgary has had, I still think Calgary's in a really good position. Same thing with Edmonton. Mm-hmm. I think Edmonton, they only got better, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And that's by virtue of, I mean, they got a goalie finally, but, mm-hmm. They kept the players that did well for them last year, and that's been a challenge for them in the past. I mean, I like LA picking up Kevin Fiala, but I don't know how much that helps LA. I'm not, and I know I like the direction LA is going, and we'll get to mm-hmm. that next week, obviously, but
week after,
or in two weeks, we'll get to that. But I'm not overly convinced that LA can repeat what they did last year, and so if anything, I wonder if Vancouver ends up unseating the LA Kings. I wouldn't be surprised if they unseat the Golden Knights either, and that mm-hmm. That jives with you saying they could be in 3rd place. And like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable placing them in 3rd, but I don't feel right placing them in 5th either, if that makes sense.
It's hard because I feel like you could. I think Edmonton and Calgary are the top, like you said,
sure,
the bottom.
Yeah,
and then when you look at LA, Vancouver, and
Vegas,
we'll just throw them in a blender and see what comes out.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
It's just, the next 3 are going to be really, really interesting. Like I said, I could see a scenario where they finish 3rd. I can also see one where they finish 5th.
I agree. I think those teams we mentioned, I think I think Vancouver, LA, Vegas, and we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about Vegas next week, LA in 2 weeks. Those 3 teams, I think they all have good elements to them. Like, I wouldn't say they're completely good teams, but they have good elements to them. And I think what it's going to ultimately boil down to is what portion of their team is going to be clicking at the right time, because we're talking all day and night about how much we like Vancouver's forwards. Well, if Vancouver's top 9 all scores at a 50-point pace, it's going to be hard to count them out a third. But conversely, if Thatcher Demko, who plays dodgeball this season, going to be pretty easy to put him in 5th. So it's really hard, and I don't feel comfortable placing them somewhere because I just don't know. Like, I almost feel like we need to talk about LA and Vegas and then come up with it at the end.
Kevin's going with 5th. You know what? I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna be bold, my friend. They are
Okay.
4th. I'm not super confident in that, but I'm gonna be bold and I'm gonna say they are 4th.
You know what? I'm with you. 4th.
All right. There we go.
I'm with you. And only reason, and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks, Los Angeles. Defense, not really a fan. Goaltending, not really a fan.
There you go.
Not for the reasons you think, though.
Right. Well, we'll find out. I mean, that's good. So that's good. All right. We're going 4th. Kevin Lacey went 5th. So we'll see. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, like I said, we have the next 2 blender teams coming up over the next 2 weeks. And I think it'll be interesting to see where we place them and whose fan bases we make super angry.
Right.
4th behind who? You'll have to look at 4th behind who. You
got to come back.
You have to come back and find out.
Wednesday, here's a little spoiler alert for the fans. So after tonight, Teal Tinted Glasses is coming at you Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific for the next 5 Wednesdays.
There's one night where that can't happen.
4 Wednesdays and another day.
I think. Give me a second. Let me just as we make bold things here. Oh no, yeah, we can do next. Yeah, what's today? Today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yes, we are back Wednesday. Okay, good.
Teal Tinted Glasses, the next 5 weeks, potentially 5 Wednesdays.
One of them will be a Tuesday or a Thursday, either the 13th or the 15th. But
point stands. There's going to be a lot to talk about.
Yes.
And then it's going to be awesome because as soon as Teal Tinted Glasses is done, Pucknologist comes back. After Dark comes back.
Yep.
Some other things in the hopper that may or may not be happening. I feel like we're wrapping up, but we're not there yet. Let's keep going.
All right. So we have both placed them 4th. So for those keeping score at home, we have Seattle ahead of the Sharks. We have the Sharks dead last in the division. We have Seattle. We have Anaheim.
I think I said See, now I don't remember. I think I said Anaheim 7th, but I'm not totally sure. We should have wrote these down.
we should have wrote these down. I'll go back and I'll find out. I'm pretty sure that's the way we have it, though. We have blank in 5th. And the Vancouver Canucks in 4th. So that is that. I mean, anything else that we think we didn't hit? I think we did pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that as we talked about it last week, and that was kind of the teaser for that week's episode. The news is kind of coming to a crawl at this point.
Yes,
and so that's why the whatever we're calling the series, I don't want to infringe on anybody else's copyright, but our division preview series.
We did it first. But
right.
I'm polite.
But the topic of conversation here on out, it's going to be a lot of division, other teams in the division and some Barracuda towards the end of the summer run I had mentioned.
Correct.
So, with that in mind, like if there's something, it's going to be, there is some structure to it, but it is going to be very kind of free flowing and not so much. I don't know that I want to say town hall, but if there is something that you're just dying to hear us talk about for some reason, like this is your time to shine.
Yeah, hit us up, because I mean, obviously, look at people like when we do long shows. But if with the way things are crawling to a halt and doing one team a show, the shows are going to get a little bit shorter. And if
I mean,
we
here's
don't
the thing,
want that to happen, help us
right?
out.
Like I mean, it's we've been on for an hour and we're more or less done.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
What the hell is that? I feel weird. Like, I always feel weird when we do short shows. I just feel like it's not very us. I do have something though. We do have love letters from Kevin.
Oh, yes.
All right. So, Kevin, love letter from Kevin. Dear boys. In final thoughts, can you please say that Kevin's final thoughts are that he's already changed his mind about the Barracuda jerseys, sweaters. The gray one is by far the best. The SJ on the white one actually looks pretty cool, but there's something lacking on the jersey that he cannot figure out. The black jersey isn't nearly as bad in person as it's made out to be, but it says CUDA, and that is still awful. Also, they did a great job with the lighting on the concourses of the Tech CU Arena. So while the building is still quite gray, it's not as noticeable at all with all the great contrasting colors surrounding the facility. So there you go. Love letters from Kevin.
There you have it. This has been another edition
of Love Letters from Kevin. Hockey Jerk, final thoughts.
Final thoughts, and unfortunately, we just wrapped up Love Letters from Kevin, and now this is going to be stab Kevin in the back moment. For those who don't know, Kevin and I are I'm not going to get too much into it for obvious reasons, but Kevin and I are in a fantasy league together, and we had our draft recently, and there's a player Kevin really wanted, and I took him, and Kevin was hot for a minute, and I had to step away from the computer because I couldn't resist the urge to be like, oh, Kevin, what's wrong?
We are awful to each other.
But you know what? In fairness, Kevin and I texted about it. We had a good chuckle about it. So it's all good. Final thoughts. We're still 5-ish weeks out from the regular season, but I feel like as soon as the calendar flips to September, like it feels like we're there. You know what I mean? And that's exciting. I mean, and I was trying to explain this to my fiance, and I don't really think she understood. But like, even though the Sharks are going to be complete dog shit this year, like I'm still excited to watch them.
Yes.
And I'm excited. They're going to be, they're going to be in Vegas twice this year, so I'm going to be at both of those games. That's going to be fun. And we got to go to LA last year. I'm going to, hopefully continue my trend of going to non-San Jose arenas to see the Sharks, and we'll see. They're going to be bad, but I'm still excited for them to come back.
Yeah, I hem and haw a lot about how this team is going to be bad. And make no mistake, they're going to be bad. But I'm still like, I'm still going to be on like a million After Darks, right? Like, it's not like I'm going to just be like, this team's bad. I'm just Barracuda or nothing. Like, there's going to be plenty of Shark content, and we're still gonna slog our way through it. And I'm looking forward to that. Like, I'm looking forward to that grind again with like the After Darks, and obviously, we're gonna have a lot of things coming. Like you said, Pucknologist is starting soon. Obviously, we're gonna do a much better job covering the Barracuda this year. That's
I was
a
gonna
promise.
say. I don't know. I had said earlier we have some things in the hopper. I don't know how much we want to divulge, but
yeah, we'll get more into it as the season approaches. But but yeah, look at our Barracuda coverage this year is going to be better. I promise that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, then I need to go and be fired into the sun. So it's going to be better.
Mike Greer will fire you.
Mike Greer will fire me into the sun. So it's going to be better. And doing this makes hockey so much more fun. And I'm looking forward to still doing this plenty this season, even if it's going to be bad. And even if you have to kind of like temper your expectations a lot. It's still always interesting to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm hoping that all of you who have stuck with us through the summer, even on the dog days of summer where we are now, I'm glad that you guys are along, and I hope that you will obviously continue to come along for the ride. That's,
Yeah.
and that's and we're always appreciative that for all of you that have continued to do so. Other than that, do I have any super final thoughts? No, not really.
26 live viewers for a hockey podcast at the end of August. I mean, that's got to mean something.
Yes. So what we're going to do is we'll be back next week, Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm.
We will talk about the Vegas Golden Knights, and I am super excited for that show because I think Vegas, they're just such a fascinating team to me. And I know everyone, hates how much that I dick ride the Golden Knights, and I probably dick ride the Golden Knights more than I should because they've always been a team that I'm always like, oh man, they're going to kill the Pacific. I don't know if they're going to kill the Pacific, but they're going to be fascinating this year for sure. And I think that's a show that I've had circled for a while because I think, again, just a fascinating team. So I hope you'll be back next week for that. But other than that, if you want to help us out, again, the things that you can do to help us out on the YouTube algorithm is leave us a like. If you have something that you think we missed, or if you have an opinion that's different than ours and you want to make it known, hit us up in the comment section. Let us know. If you have, also you can, if you want to leave a comment in here for a topic that you want us to cover on next show, perfect place to do it. I always hit up the comments. I always try to respond as quickly as I humanly can when people leave us messages. So definitely hit us up in the YouTube comments. If you want to hang out with us on the regular, hit up Mr. @HockeyJerk on the Twitter machine and see if he will give you the keys to the Discord server.
The conversation literally never stops.
It literally never stops. And it's been super fun there. So I'd love to see if you guys would join us there. Other than that, as you know, look at
one more thing, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts as well.
Yes.
Or you know what? 1 star on Apple Podcast. Only if you hate it though. But 5 stars is preferred.
Leave us an honest review. Definitely.
Yes.
Again, you can find us on most of your, if you can get a podcast somewhere, then chances are we are there. So if you want to get this on the audio, and for those that only listen on the audio, kudos to you. AJ saying check out Teal Town USA on the TikTok for some exclusive videos. There you go. I'm not a TikTok person, but if you are, you should be following at Teal Town USA. That is it, guys. I appreciate you all being here, and we will see you next week.